Hello, welcome to the Internet Chess Club. This is Grandmaster Miguel Illescas, and we are going to analyze game number 6 of the World Chess Championship, which is taking place in Dubai. What an amazing game. I have no words. What can I say? Well, first of all, a record was broken. This was the longest game in all World Championship chess history, 135 years of the World Championship finals and 136 moves for this game, which Magnus Carlsen won after a tour de force. Fantastic fight. Both players were playing at very high level. Of course, there were some mistakes, but it was a very tense battle which ended in a dramatic way. Let's have a look at this wonderful game. Please join me, enjoy this brilliant production. This was the position after first move. It's clear that Magnus didn't want to repeat the Russian defense, so he went for the queen's pawn, and very soon he surprised his opponent with the move g3. Well, this was already topical in this match. Magnus was always taking the initiative on the opening, not always, but most of the games. And this was no exception. After g3, black has several options. I mean, it's typical to play with c6, so to develop the bishop. And then if white wants to play c4, he's in danger to lose the pawn. Still, it's a very playable gambit. And of course, the bishop may also develop to g4. There are several options, but Nepo played e6. He wanted to stick to his preparation, and he was probably expecting the move c4, which would go for the Catalan opening, which we had in previous games. So after castle, Magnus, he showed his preparation with the move b3. He's pretending to go for a slow development and maybe play c4 with the pawn protected. This move was not a new move, and it would hardly be a surprise for black. It's quite standard. But we will see very soon that Magnus was very well prepared for this game. He answered c5 with pawn takes c5. In most of the games, white was playing bishop b2, but d takes c5, bishop c5, and now it came a new move. Just we are on move 8, and it's clear that the champion's strategy in this match is to grab the initiative at any cost. He wants to play something which he has prepared. It's not so important if it's so good, but he wants to be in known territory. And in this game, after c4, this is something completely new. Black takes, and of course here, if white takes, then he gets a stupid isolated pawn. White's idea was queen c2. So far, so good. And Nepo was forced to start thinking from the very beginning. He played queen e7, which is very natural, protecting the pawn, and here it came the real preparation, the real surprise, knight bd2. White is offering a gambit. In my opinion, after c takes b3, knight b3, white has enough compensation. Probably not enough for an advantage, but enough to make to pressure and to make some suffering for the opponent, especially because white is well prepared and black has to find the moves over the board. So in my opinion, Nepo's decision was right. Knight c6 is a very healthy move. It cannot be bad. And after knight c4, he found the very powerful move b5. Everything now gets pretty forced, and in a few moves we will see black getting a very comfortable position. In this point, I would say the game is pretty equal. But Magnus proved that he was today ready for a fight, and he decided to keep as many pieces as possible over the board. Knight d3. I like very much this knight on the Catalan on d3. It gets very nice prospects. Black played bishop b6. I also like these bishops, especially the bishop on b6 is quite strong. And the game continued with bishop g5, and here we can say that the opening is over, and both sides have connected the rooks, and in my opinion the position is pretty equal. The next move was rook f d8. Black gets his pieces into play, And here we saw bishop takes f6. It's an ambitious move, very critical, and I was a bit surprised to see Nepo's answer here, because in general, if you are going to get your king weak, you should better first trade queens. And the natural move was queen takes f6, after that probably take, and I don't really understand what Nepo was afraid here, because the position gets pretty equal. I mean, black is in very good shape with a pair of bishops, nothing to fear in my opinion. Of course, it looks like white has some initiative here, but it's really nothing. I mean, black can keep the balance in a very simple way. In fact, he may be even slightly better sometimes with these powerful bishops. So difficult, I would say this was the first little, I am not going to say mistake, but maybe not the most precise move, g takes f6. Now the black king will be weak, and well, the queens are still on the board. But I understand the Russian mentality, because after rook ac1 he played knight d4, and you will see that after take the white queen has to still protect a3, and that's why probably Nepo wanted to keep his queen on e7. Now white is forced to bring the queen to a very nasty square, queen a2, and black gets a very comfortable equality after a couple of trades, check and queen e4. This is a very important position in my opinion. Black got full equality, and at this point I was pretty sure that this game would also end in a draw. It's two open lines for the rooks to get traded, and finally, well, it's very symmetrical. But this game was going to bring a lot of unexpected events. White played queen c2, and here we can see that, for example, if black tries to get h5, h4, he may land in some little problems after knight b4, the knight maybe jump into c6. That's why Nepo played very natural move a5, getting this square under control. What to do here? White continued with his normal development, rook fd1, and black played king g7, very natural, improving the position of the king. At this point, it was not easy to find a plan for white, and Magnus went with a subtle move, delicate move, rook d2. The point is that here black of course could play rook c8. In fact, after queen c2, white was making an invitation to go for this endgame. But after take, check, white gets two rooks for the queen, and well, according to normal standards, this would be slightly better for white. That's why black plays king g7, and now his idea is to play rook c8, and after white takes, black can take on e2. And that is why Magnus played rook d2. Now we understand things a bit better. This is the main goal of this analysis, to help you understand chess move by move in a very precise way. At this point, I believe black took a bad decision. Here the position is pretty equal, and I was expecting something like f5. Why I do like this move a lot? Because then the bishop has a good square to hide if needed, and somehow black gets some harmony. I mean, with pawns he controls light squares, and with the bishop he controls dark squares. But instead he decided to go for the trade of two rooks for a queen. Well, I don't know how you were taught chess, but when I was learning chess, a queen was 9 points and the rook was 5 points. So two rooks, it's 10, and the queen is 9. With modern computers, we understood that the queen is maybe stronger than it was thought at the old days. But still, two rooks should be slightly better than a queen. Then my question is, why to go for this? The only reason I see for rook c8 is that maybe Nepo thought that after queen d5, with his pieces, he can really make damage to white pawns on the queen side. And this was probably true. So Nepo today, he was playing very tactical. He was not thinking in a strategical way. He was always looking for the precise moves. And this is very difficult. And finally, you will see that he cracked after 130 moves. Amazing. Okay, Magnus played b4, black went a4. Now this is a clear target. White went e3. And here it was the first opportunity to get a completely equal game with bishop b2. This trick, which Nepo, in fact, he played it later. Probably, okay, computer is showing this line as the best for both sides. And this is probably drawish. The queen is very active, a3 is very weak, and this should be a draw. But okay, Nepo played bishop e5, which is also fine. White went h4, getting some extra squares for the king, just in case. And the next move, in my opinion, it's not a blunder, but it's a serious, not the most precise move, I would say. Black played h5. Okay, this is very typical. h4, h5. Usually our brain likes things to be stable. So in this way, pawns are blocked, and we know that this is going to be the structure. But in this case, why to bring this pawn to h5? It was completely alright on h7, and I don't see what is good for black. The pawn on h5 will be more exposed, I mean more vulnerable on the 5th rank, and in general on h7 was doing very fine. So I think it was already time to play bishop b2 and go for this liquidation and make a draw. But after h5, white played king h2, and now finally Nepo decided it was already time to play bishop b2. But as we will see, now this was a serious mistake. Instead, he should play queen b3, trying to get this pawn, and after 95 pawn takes, black is gonna take here, and the best thing white can do probably is to make a draw, doubling rooks and making some perpetual. This would be a very natural way to end this game, but instead Nepo went bishop b2. It's clear he was not thinking well. Maybe they were slightly, well, not yet in two-time trouble. It was move 31. And here after rook c5, queen d6, white had a big opportunity to win the game. I'm not joking. I mean, this was probably, but it was very difficult. But it was probably winning for white, but a very difficult move. That's why I'm putting some tea on my cup, and I'm inviting you to try to solve it. White to play and win. Very difficult. Well, we have to see that now the point is that the knight is under ping. I mean, knight b2 is not working because queen d2, that's obvious. And rook b2, queen d3, this is probably going to be a draw. So how to win with white? With a very difficult move. Magnus played rook d1, which is natural. He's trying to get out of the ping. But he could play instead an amazing move, rook c2. It's a very difficult move. After bishop a3, knight f4, and now white's, well, I mean, white is sacrificing everything. Magnus, he had only just 3.5 minutes. It's impossible for human to find these ideas, I mean, in such a short time. Because the point is that white now, it looks like lost because he lost 2 pawns, but rook d7 and white is winning. He's threatening rook c7, also knight e6, and the attack is decisive. This is really difficult, and especially because, for example, if black here plays queen e7, then there is no invasion on the 7th rank, but white is still winning with another idea, rook c8, take, and rook d8. So we attack on the 7th rank, we attack on the 8th rank, and it's always a winning attack. This is incredibly difficult, so we cannot blame Magnus not to find it. But it's true that he had few times, so this, yes, this was his fault. He was thinking a lot on this game, so finally he didn't have enough time to play the best moves. He had a second opportunity few moves later, we'll see. After rook d1, bishop a3, suddenly rook b5, queen d7, now we attack the rook. And black is very tricky, white has to be careful. If he wants to keep this pawn protected with a move like rook b8, then black is winning. Can you find how? That's not so difficult. Black could play here queen c7, and the idea is queen c2. And then white is going to lose material. The same would happen if rook b6, queen c7, and queen c2. So that's why Magnus was forced to play rook c5. And here it's difficult to understand why Nepo didn't take the pawn on b4. This is difficult to understand. I don't know, maybe he wanted, maybe one day he was dreaming to play bishop b2 and a3, a2, a1, but the point is that after bishop b4, white cannot take because queen takes d1, that's clear. And what can white do? We want just to push the pawn, we need to play rook c1 just to be able to move the knight. And maybe Nepo here was worried, but I don't understand why. I mean, bishop e7. And he is getting the same position like in the game, but this pawn is still alive. You will see that in the game he's going to reach this kind of position, but losing the pawn, the e-pawn, which is a terrible tragedy for black. After bishop e7, black is better, and well, I mean, the game could follow something like this, but white would be happy here to make a draw. It's a queen for 2 rooks, but this pawn is really strong, and well, it's difficult to believe that white can really pretend to win here. Okay, so this didn't happen because Nepo played e5. I understand this is also a natural move. He wants to control the square f4. By the way, I have to say that after bishop b4, rook h5 is really bad. Black plays e5. And it's completely winning. The rook is trapped, so this would be completely crazy to take on h5. So, but in the game it happened a5, rook c2, queen d5. This was probably dubious. It was already time to take on b4. This was the last chance, and again black is better. I mean, I don't see any reason not to take. I mean, probably maybe he was worried after rook c1, now there are some threats. And it's true, it's not so simple. He needs to find moves like bishop a3 and queen g4. This was maybe not so easy anymore. The queen is protecting a4, so after rook d2, black can simply play bishop f8. I understand this was not so easy, but bishop b4 was still a very natural move. Black could make a draw easily. For example, if he's worried about moves like knight e5, I understand he may be worried, but still this was much better version than the game. But he could force a draw here with queen f5, take, check, and this is a draw. White cannot escape the perpetual because if king g2, then check and take. So Nepo had a very good opportunity here to make a easy draw with bishop takes b4. But instead he went queen d5, and now things get more difficult because after rook d2, this is not working anymore. Nepo tried to take the pawn with queen b3, and in fact the problem is that after bishop b2, take, white is going to grab this pawn and go for an endgame which is very, very likely to be won. So this was really dangerous, and that's why Nepo went e4. But suddenly white gets a very big chance to win the game again. Well, I'm not sure to win, but to get very, very close. Carlsen played knight c5. This was move 39. Both players were very short on time, in time trouble. Queen takes b4. And here, with only 30 seconds on his clock, Magnus didn't find the best move. Can you find it? It's a very delicate move for white, a strategical move. Well, the move was rook c2. It was a very difficult move, I understand. But the point, if you see black pieces, black cannot really escape. He cannot move the bishop, he cannot move the queen. So he can only move pawns and the king on the king side. He can play f5, but at any moment, white can play knight a4, eliminate this dangerous pawn, rook c3. And we are going to see that 2 rooks are better than a queen, because black's plan is to double on the 5th rank and to take the pawn on f5, go into an endgame with 4 versus 3. This could be a very good chance for white to get a clear advantage, but instead he went the natural move knight e4, but suddenly things are not so easy. He goes queen b3, but remember, we could have this position with pawn on e6 if black would take immediately on b4, which is amazing he didn't. Okay, now we have a position where black is going to suffer a lot. The pawn structure on the king side is really very bad for black. And if white grabs this pawn on a4, the game is going to be over. Game over. Rook, knight and pawn versus queen, but in a very bad structure, and also rook versus bishop. This would be completely winning. And now we get a phase of maneuvers. Both sides try to improve their position. And at the beginning, we thought that maybe white was pretending to take here. But it's true that black is going to get very good counterplay. I mean, attacking the rook and trying to improve with his pawn. So white has to be careful, and Magnus played very, very careful. He wanted to eliminate this pawn. And finally he made a plan to bring his knight to c2 to take on a3. How can black face this simple plan? The answer was pretty clear, and Nepo, he knew it, but suddenly he changed his mind in a new mistake. In this position he could simply wait, I mean something like king g6, because everybody knew, both players, they knew that knight c2 is not gonna work because queen b3. And if white pretends to take, then black plays bishop e5, taking on a1, and this probably is going to be winning for black, because white is losing not only exchange but a full rook, because let's say king g1, take, and queen b2. And well, I'm not sure, maybe white can make a draw here, bringing the rook to f4, but that would be already a miracle, no? So after king g6, I don't really see that black is in any trouble, because it's, as I said, it's almost impossible to take this pawn in a good condition. But instead he made this move, queen e4, and he's offering now the possibility for white to take on e3 as he did. Magnus played very brave, very well, rook a3. The point is that if bishop a3, rook a3, now the rook is going to land very easy on f5 or f4, and white is going to win this position with rook, knight and pawn, because the better pawn structure. That's why Nepo played queen h4, which was probably his idea. And now we go to another situation in the game where black tries to play h4, but he was not able to do it, and white tries to organize his two rooks versus the weakness on black's camp. But it will be not easy. According to Stockfish, and this position is a draw, it's around equal. We know, I mean, I know white is better. I don't care what Stockfish says. White is better. I mean, come on, two rooks for a queen, weak pawns. The only question is, will it be enough to win? But in a normal game, I mean, between humans, black is suffering. So let's forget about this 0.0, which make us be a bit fool, and let's see how white can organize his pieces. Magnus played in a very clever way with f3, and trying to get rid of this bishop in the center. But black also reacted very well, bringing the bishop to attack this weakness, and very soon they got some position, still equal, but Magnus trying to arrange his rooks in a better way. But there was a lot of counterplay all the time. He had to make a lot of back and forth, I mean, trying to get Nepo confused. The pressure on e3 is strong. That's why it cannot do almost anything. He has this extra rook to do something, but it's not easy. I mean, if rook h1, for example, this would be a big mistake, f6. And we can see how delicate is the position, how strong is the threat on e3. White would be here probably losing. So after queen b3, white went rook e8. They were playing a few moves more, and always this counterplay, queen h1 with idea check and check, and white was all the time forced to come back. Finally he managed to create some annoying threats with rook b1 and rook e7. This was a very critical moment. Black moved the queen out of b3, he allowed this, And suddenly he has to be careful. I mean, here Nepo found the only way to stay alive with queen d3, very precise move. He's attacking the rook, and after rook b7, now there are some ideas. If bishop d6, white is probably winning with rook d7. This ping is very strong. And black played queen c2, again very precise. He was defending like a machine without a clear strategy, but with fantastic tactics and calculation. Magnus was more strategical in this game, and he finally got a very good prize. Fantastic victory, as you will see. It's move 77, but this is only half of the game. So take a tea, have a little drink, because we still have a lot of chess to see today. Well, I mean, this was an interesting moment. I mean, if rook takes f5, then queen d3, and in fact this is what happened in the game. After rook a5, bishop b6, rook b5, bishop a7, he had to take on f5, and black played queen d3. This is a very good move. Again, Nepo solving with tactics, and the point is that now black wants to take on e3, and if rook b5, then we have the move bishop e3, and it's a draw. And if rook f e5, then again we have bishop e3, and again this would be completely drawish. So after thinking for a while, Magnus went for his only chance to try to continue fighting to win this game. Rook f7 check, take, check, and take. We reach a new position, a very difficult one according to normal theory. White is better. Knight, rook, and a pawn would be for a queen, so white is a kind of pawn up, okay? But it's of course not easy, because if we want to push these pawns, then a lot of check will come, and computers are offering equality. Here it will be very difficult to comment every move. White needs to push his pawns, and he was trying to do so for a while without success. Also, he had to be careful because the black queen was always very active. He had to control the enters on the queen again controlling e4, f5. It was a very tense battle, and at one point I thought white is going to achieve nothing, because look, he's trying to push e4, but it's not easy, and I thought, okay, this is going to be a draw. But a lot of things were going to happen in this game yet, and after a few moves, Magnus, he understood that he needs to come to another position, because with the knight on f3, this was not really working well. This is again the same position, and finally on move 105, he made an incredible move, in my opinion. This was the beginning of the victory for Magnus Carlsen. Move 105, amazing. He played knight g1. It's an incredible move. He wants to stop queen coming to h1, and he will come back to the position with knight on e2 and try to start from the beginning again. It's amazing, such a willpower. Many players would say, okay, come on, draw, 105 moves, you defended well, it's a draw. Magnus, he didn't give up, and he was fighting, trying to squeeze his advantage, and finally he got the big prize. The move queen b4, rook d1, okay, I'm not going to comment very much on this, because it's, well, I mean, position is still drawish, and here finally black is allowing to play white e4. It's a critical moment. White shows that he's going to play for a win. Of course, with the knight on e2 will win not so good as with the knight on f3, because the knight is a bit passive here, and black gets immediately counterplay with queen h1. But okay, what to do? White went like this. In fact, he's doing nothing, and black could simply play the king, and I had the feeling that this is a draw. I mean, but Nepo, he wanted to make it more mathematically drawish, so he decided to trade these pawns. In my opinion, this was not necessary. I mean, and it's maybe making life a bit more complicated for black, as we will see very soon. You will see. Now we get a position which is on the table basis. You know, in Moscow there is a Russian university named Lomonosov, and there they have a big computer which is working on the chess. All positions with 7 men are covered, and this is seven pieces, including the kings, and the computer is showing draw. But of course, white is better. I mean, we need to think on chess not as a only mathematical subject, but as a sport. And white is going to try to push his pawns and to win the game. So black will need to defend. And it looks, at the beginning I thought, okay, come on, this is not difficult. But truth is that very soon black started to go wrong. For example, in this position he could play, instead of king f8, he could play queen f2, and somehow it's difficult for white, sorry, to make progress. He can play rook e3, king f7, and if e5 we have probably king e6, and I don't know, I mean, I have the feeling that this is going to be draw quite easy. This is my feeling. But the way black played, very soon we will see the mistake he made. He started to play without a clear plan, giving some checks, and I have the feeling that he didn't see white's idea. Magnus was very clever here. Black played queen a5. This is already a mistake, not decisive, but it was better to play queen b6 check to stop white to bring his king to g2. But black didn't pay attention, and suddenly Magnus is arranging his pieces to bring the king to g2, and there he will be able to protect on h3 from checks. And this can make a difference. This can make life quite difficult for black. You will see. Here it was still possible to oppose this plan with something like queen g4, and I have the feeling this is still very drawish, quite easy. But he continued to play not the most precise way, and very soon black got into a difficult position, because now white king is very safe, and white has freedom to bring his rook to f5, which he did, you will see. And here we can see that already the checks will be not so easy for white to continue checking without giving black the opportunity to improve his position. So this is probably already quite difficult to defend, and this is still a draw. But now on move 130 it came the decisive mistake from young Nepomniachtchi. He played queen e6, which is losing. What to do here? I will show you. There are only 2 moves which make a draw, and both are getting this diagonal. And why it's that important? You will see in this position after queen c2, it's already very difficult to find the moves which make a draw. After rook f6, the only move which makes a draw is queen d1, just getting under control square g4. And if king h4, the only move which makes a draw is queen e1, pinning the knight. So this was already not easy, and it's of course clear that with so short on time, black played a decisive mistake, queen e6. They were probably already tired. It's almost more than 7 hours of fight, and white won very easy. I mean, just 5 more moves. White is improving all his pieces. The queen should be here, should be attacking from behind. Now the queen has no place, and very soon white gets here. It's very nice. He's giving the rook. No, black cannot take, check and take. And I don't know what Nepo missed, but the truth is that this was pretty easy to win. Now white wants to play e7, e8, and Nepo, he understood that the king is going to hide on g8 after a few checks, and he resigned. We can see check, check, more checks, doesn't matter, and finally the king goes to g8, and e7 is coming. It's game over. So, what can I say? It's an amazing game. It's a brilliant victory for Magnus Carlsen. It was really well deserved. He was all the time playing for a win with big ambition. And again, we can only take our hat off on the talent on this player, this great champion. He's now leading 3.5, 2.5. Tomorrow they have to play. Magnus will play with the black pieces, but Nepo is going to sleep quite badly today. He had good chances with bishop takes b4, at least an easy draw. He lost a game which you cannot lose in this kind of event, and we will see how he handles now all the pressure and all these bad feelings. For Magnus in Twitter, he simply said yes, something like that. Congratulations. It was a brilliant game, and I hope you enjoyed this review, which of course could be longer, but I believe it was already enough chess emotions for today. I hope to see you tomorrow. We will be expecting a wonderful game, and I got very nice feelings today because it was my birthday, and they presented me with the first victory after so many draws in World Championship matches. By the way, this was the longest game in a World Championship match in all chess history, 136 moves, and a victory for the world champion Magnus Carlsen. That's all today. Thank you so much. See you for Game 7.